machinist and electronic engineer, and lately have gotten more involved into wood building stuff, but mainly raw stuff, 2x4s, dark rooms, making things like that, and really not the fine woodworking. I ended up buying an estate from a fellow that had passed, and he ended up with I ended up with two 16 or 18-foot trailers full of wood and a lot of machinery. And I said, well, I got all this wood, I got to start doing something with it. I'll tell you very quickly, I've got that. No, that's not it. Let me go to your earlier one. That my first machine I built, I'll tell you exactly what had happened. I got all this stuff in here. I started a little company 25 years ago. I needed to cut out these panels. And the first panels was using a vise, which had an X and a Y, and that got old real quick. And so I got the first one. But anyway, I built a little machine, a CNC machine, and the spindle, by the way, was basically a Dremel, one of those snake Dremels coming down and all this. It was pretty elementary, but it did the job. And then later that's my milling machine. Later on, business grew and I needed more production. So I built another machine. I had to acquire a milling machine first in order to build a CNC machine, which eventually they'll pull up here. I'm just going to run through stuff very rapidly. One of the things I think is handy about it is, you can use acrylic. I use the CNC to also help me with tools. And these are the throats for my, let me move this thing over because I'm going to fill this thing up real quick. So it's handy. The neat part is if you need another throat, I just go push a button, stick the thing in there. It's already programmed. I made a box for my daughter. A table, what they call a waterfall table, I guess. And I thought it'd be fun to see if I could do this with the CNC, which I did on the CNC machine. And so, it was a regular table. And so, but these are kind of cool. The neat part about it is you can adjust it where it's just exactly the right size you want on CNC. Get on to the next one here. This was an interesting little project. I have to give, sorry about this, I have to give Terry credit because I saw this box up front and I thought, well, that's pretty cool, but I'm not talented enough to do it with a box, with a bandsaw, and you guys are much better woodwork than I'll ever dream of. But I thought, well, hell, I'll make this out of a CNC instead. So what happened is that, I just programmed the CNC to cut all the pieces out. And then, and of course I had to, my first one, I squeezed it together and it didn't work. So now you see I put dowel holes right here. And so I stacked these pieces up with the dowel holes, glue it together, and then you end up with a box. And you don't have to be as talented as many people do that can make it out of a bandsaw. This is keeping with this is a throat for my Rikon bandsaw. And you see, this throat was a little wide because sometimes things are in. So I just, again, I push a button. If I want a throat, I got them, and I can change the width of it as well. So that's kind of handy. Like I said, it's a tool. My CNC is just a tool that sometimes I can make other tools. This is for the really expensive stuff. I take cardboard and I like to make little boxes. This is out of my the laser. Complicated stuff here, fella. Like I said, I'm going through this pretty quick. I've been handy at making signs. This is I ended up having to make like 15 signs for 15 big companies. And so I put them in this box, and this is like this little crate here, which is kind of cool. And then here's the actual sign. This is one of them. I did a bunch of them. And so, and this is how the little signs turned out. This, by the way, takes 4 tool changes on my CNC to get this right. This one is actually done with high density foam. And trust me, this took a long time to figure this out, but many times now I'll take the outside will be wood and I'll carve it out, and I'll do the cutting of the lettering in foam, and then put the foam inside so it looks like it's a wood sign, but it's not. It's cheating. That's what I do. I'm a cheater. And so one of the things I think is interesting about this box, let me see if I got this other box in here. Yeah, here we go. Then on my laser, and CNC is CNC, you know, a lot of times I use a laser, sometimes a CNC. A lot of times I don't decide which, I'm not sure which one, but so in these particular boxes, it's a combination of both. I'll make this outside with the CNC, cut that wood there, it makes it precision. But then the neat part is, guys might like this, is that I'll go ahead and this is all done with the laser. And then what I do is I take it back to the CNC and cut 45 grooves in here, right? And so then what happens is when I want to make a box, precision. And then what happens is the bottom and the top are all done on the CNC. I mean, they all just, that's the neat thing about it, is the CNC is good to a thousandth of an inch. Oh, that's my laser right there. You see the add-on, I added on a tube to give me 130 watts. It was a 160 watt laser, and I added that other tube. It took a little bit of time to get that thing in there. This is a box. This is nothing, no big deal at all. The big deal thing about this is I woke up this morning and said, how quickly can I make a box using my laser? So within half an hour, I had all this wood here. And in another few minutes, I ended up with the rest of this. So this whole box took all of just a few minutes to make. And so it's not the box, it's how quickly it made. Yes.
Is that glued together?
Pardon?
How did you get that color?
Well, you talk about the color here? Well, the neat part is my laser, if your laser, you can make stamps. You put rubber in there and it cuts out and it makes stamps. So you can make stamps. So what it is, I made stamps and then put the stamps to get little accents here, you know, for this. So the laser CNC doesn't do that, but I made the stamps. So that's kind of cool that you can make stamps with the laser. Yeah, I just take a stamp and just put ink on it. I'm sorry I didn't bring in the stamps, but you put that in your laser and it cuts it out.
The box, is that glued together, or are they just finger joints? Just put, no, the other one, the little one.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah.
Well, I glued it. I probably didn't need to, but yeah, I just put a little glue on there. And it was just from design. I'm telling you, I walked in a blank page. I went boom, 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 design and done. Yeah, I mean, it fits perfectly. Yeah, it's so, you know, it's thousandths of an inch. This is something, this is a sign that I made, this is for my daughter. Little sign here. This is all done with the, yeah, this is all CNC, well, except the, you know, making kind of the charcuterie boards kind of wood here. But you look at this as the Purple Heart, you know, the detail that you can get cutting out with the Purple Heart, this little thing. By the way, I was going to, originally I made it like this for my daughter, you know, with just epoxy inlay. And this was cut out on the CNC and then put epoxy on the inlay. And I just didn't like it. So, you know, I went and did this one. Anyway, she's been bugging me for a sign. Here's something I made on my CNC, which is pretty cool. You know, the neat part about this is that, this is ash, by the way. The neat part about this is that it's just so simple for me to make one twice the size or half the size or elongated or whatever. I just push a button. Once this has been in the CNC, then it's kind of neat, you know, to just pump them out. I say pump them out. By the way, I don't sell anything. That's not my business, is making, I just enjoy the process of figuring out how to do something and then do it. I'll see something and it looks fun, and so I'll just do it. And this turns out where my wife says, now I want another one. I'll tell you a little secret, to sand them before you put it together. It's a little hint, by the way. Because I will tell you, getting under there was not easy, but there's a little, on my CNC, I do some work for friends, who are in the film business, and sometimes they need computers to control cameras, or they'll have props. And so this is a little prop that I made for them. This is, this gets, it's just kind of cool that you can make these little tiny pieces all out of aluminum on the CNC. And by the way, it's a little dog. They use stop motion photography. And there's a little dog, and the head of the dog pops out, and his rear end pops out. So this is what this little thing does here. And then I thought that it'd be fun to show you guys. I took the same design. You'll love this. Took the same design and just hit 900% bigger, right? So made it bigger. I had some junk wood, really junk wood. So I thought I'd make a bigger one. So I had to reinforce I kept breaking this thing. I just made this yesterday. And the fun part was making these little pegs here. And first I tried to do it with the CNC, to use the CNC to drill these things out. And then what you do is you cut them out like this, and then you slice it, and they all pop out, and you got these little things in here, but some of them broke, and et cetera. And this took forever. The CNC was just cranking away. So I thought, well, let me go over to the laser. I went to the laser, and the laser went bam, 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 and they all fit, perfectly. And when you do something like this, if any one of those things, any one of these pieces of wood is not the right exact size, it just doesn't work. The scissor thing doesn't. John and Gary, they got some really cool stuff. The neat part about it is that I do this kind of crazy stuff, and everybody that does CNC does something totally different. I mean, there is just no limit. It's amazing. This little sign here, the bases, I just use a CNC to make the bases, and so basically pop it on there. And it takes 2 drill changes, by the way, for this one, bit changes. And then here's another little something I made. This is just another little coaster deal that I just had fun. I thought, well, it'd be kind of fun to make something CNC that's 3-dimensional. And so these are what the coasters look like when I cut them out. This is what it looks like, the wood, before I make this. And the nice thing about this was the pegs actually that hold it together are actually sort of part of the aesthetic look, maybe, or something. I'll tell you, there's something really fun. I don't know if you heard about a drag knife. This is a drag knife here. This is a big one, a drag knife, and you put that in your CNC, and wherever it goes, it follows it around. And in the gadgets of Vetric, VCarve, they have a gadget in there that really makes this thing work really well. I haven't used this one, but the neat part about this one here, you can cut anything. And one thing people do, some people use it to cut boxes. You can make your own box, design a big box. It cuts cardboard. This cuts leather, cuts all kind of stuff. I didn't really know about that knife, so I took this little knife that you get from what's the company that makes these things? Exacto. Yeah, they make a little one that does circular. What I do is I just cut it and put it in my CNC, in my engraver, and so then it follows it around. This thing worked just fine, and they sell this like cheap. But then they also, which is kind of cool, well, I'll show you what I did with the drag knife first, is I made a bumper sticker, ladies and gentlemen. And so this may be insignificant in itself, but this is at least a lot of cool stuff, because what happens is you can actually cut it out here, but they also have material that you can cut out, and it goes directly onto fabric. You iron it on, so you can make a t-shirt out of this thing. The other thing is that you can take the vinyl, and you put the vinyl on a screen. If anybody knows about screen printing, you can actually put the vinyl on the screen for screen printing, and you can make dozens of shirts, all with your CNC. It's pretty cool. And the, oh yeah, here's another thing I'll show you. Just kind of expand. I'm just keeping this under time. Sorry, I talked to you. I'm a little bit ADD if you hadn't figured out, or ADHD or whatever that's called. So if you're not understanding me, it's not your fault. It's me. Sometimes I change subjects in the same sentence, but okay, here's a sign that was sandblasted, okay? Sandblasted sign. But what happened is you use the drag knife on this rubber. Buy this rubber, take a drag knife, put that on wood, and of course, this is actually backwards, you know, you understand that, but and then what happens is you can spray. This one's been drag knifed, but I haven't what they call peel it off, or what they call that. Anyway, so that's pretty cool, because then you can take your CNC and do, you know, make sandblasted signs easily. It's pretty cool. And then I have oh yeah, I got something cool to show. This is just some junk wood. Well, it's not really junk wood, it's nice wood, but I just made some of these things. They're really fun to put in. And like if you got to clean up the shop, you put a piece of wood in there, push the button, a trivet, yeah. So that was fun. Different designs, they're really easy to do. And then, of course, bigger or smaller. Now, here's what I want to show you. This one for the CNC. This one's what really took me. And I put it on cover here. And this is my last item here. And then I got to pack all this. Oh, wait, it's not my last item. I got this, open it. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty cool. This is a diamond tipped engraving bit. Some of you know about this thing already, but this is pretty cool because you can engrave stuff. And what I did was I engraved this sign right here. And isn't that cool? And it actually changes color. I have a thing in my pocket, changes color, but you get the idea even without it being the color being changed. And so I actually did this one on the on my CNC machine. And we got that one. Oh, there's my CNC. That's the one I built, by the way. And I'm pretty handy with mechanics, and so I built that. But that one uses I don't know if you see the servos up there. Those are called pancake servos, and they're actually water cooled. You see the water around there. And so, but those servos are pretty hefty, and maybe even a little too hefty for that. And let me see. So that was the, oh yeah, and the other thing here is I've got a coin here. Sorry to be scattered, but I want to get through all this stuff in time. But I also took this blade and made a coin. A little coin engraved. It's not that great looking, but it still is engraved. And here it says $500 credit for a woodcrafter. So that's nice. Anybody need $500 off? Here's the coin, and I'll sell it to you for 150 bucks. You make $350.
What's the material of that? What is that?
Copper.
It is copper? Okay.
Yeah, you buy these, and they cost about $1 a piece, you know, when you buy them, you know, Amazon. I've always wanted to be able to, instead of having a 45-degree angle, you know, when I make a table, I thought it'd be really cool to do a curved angle. And so that has been a challenge, but I got it right here. I'm going to show you what I made here. Was this table. And here's the table. I don't know if you can see this, but the there's the curve. See how the instead of a 45, it's curved right there. And yeah, so oh yeah, oh look at that, I'm on TV. Hey Mom. Yeah. Yeah, this right here, I don't know if you can see that, but it's a curve. And I'll tell you, faint of heart, start getting into this, because if it's a billionth off, it shows. So this is a couple of things. One is that I made this, the top, using pieces These are little pieces like this. I cut them on the laser. Take these pieces, cut them on the laser, and put them together to make these, okay? And then I take these and I put them all together to make this, okay? And that's how that's made. If anybody wants to duplicate that, you have to pay me 18 cents. That's my fee. I'm not kidding you. So, but anyway, and oh yeah, the other side, the other side too was that the legs on this thing, you see the legs, they're fluted here and tapered, done on my CNC, you know, so I just took those, you know, just popped it in there, it fluted it, and then it will cut that. It was a lot easier than the I was doing it on the joiner, you know, that trick to make legs on the joiner. But I'm real happy with the way that turned out. And actually, making these legs, it only takes about maybe 10 minutes per leg, you know, to do the whole leg. And every one comes out exactly the same way. So anyway, that's all I got.
The programming.
Oh, yeah, you wanted to know about the programming. I don't know how to answer that.
What software?
I use Vectric and VCarve Pro. I have also Aspire, but I don't really use Aspire. You know, Greg uses Aspire and many does. Aspire is more three-dimensional kinds of things, and mine, I don't use that. But and what happened is once you get in the middle of it, I mean, I use a different program for VCarve Pro. What I can do is some things are easier to design in VCarve Pro, and some things are a little bit easier to do, like in a Lightburn, which I use for the laser. Sometimes I'll design something in VCarve Pro, and then I will export it and import it into the, you know, into the laser, or vice versa.
And
Yeah.
your career or programming in your work before you got to woodwork?
Yeah, I'm a programmer and an electronic designer, so that's what I do. And so that's, and I've had to design a lot of circuit boards, so I'm kind of used to that. But I can tell you, watch a YouTube and you'll be making something like that.
I'm Gary Fjeld. I don't know, yeah, there you can see one of my machines. I have that. I got my first CNC, I think it was 2011, Next Wave Shark machine. At that time, the router on there was a Bosch trim router or a DeWalt trim router. And it worked. And this was one of Next Wave's early machines, and it had some issues. A few years later, I found where someone was selling what they called an HD, which is a little bit more sturdy router, and you could use a Porter cable on it, and used that for many years. Used hearing protection every time you were using it because of the router. Finally, I decided enough is enough with the router and went with a spindle. I've got about a 3-horse water-cooled spindle on there, and connected to the dust collector. Dust collector doesn't do a real good job because you don't want those brushes down on top of the material because it can affect the finish. Go ahead to the next slide. It just shows a program that comes from Next Wave. Go ahead to the next one. And a couple of years ago, I saw someone was selling a Piranha at a very reasonable price. And at the last tool sale, there was a very, very reasonable price on a Piranha. I use that for small stuff. The other one I can cut up to about a 24 by 24 inch piece. This one's about 12 by 12. I do a number of craft shows in the fall, particularly for Christmas, at some of the churches. So you're going to see some of the religious items that I have. This is one of the items of a Last Supper. Ken, you were wondering about time. This is about 15 hours of machine time. Machine time. Once I put this piece of wood in the machine and hit the start button, it's going to run for about 15 hours between, it's typically a 1/4-inch end mill to do the rough cut, and then an 1/8-inch tapered ball nose to do the finished cut. I use about a 5% step over on that on the finish. This is so fine that on the disciples here, you can actually see the impression of the toes. Now with that 5% step over, it's having to make 200 passes to go an inch from there up to there.
You mean by step up?
How much it's going to move from one pass to the next pass. So it's going to go this way, step over the 5% or about 5/1000ths of an inch. It's going to come back this way, then step up another 5/1000ths and go back. So like I said, you've got 200 passes to go an inch from here up to here. So that's one of the reasons, and you're dealing with the vertical movement. It's not just horizontal movement, it's vertical movement along with it. So that also affects the time. This is one of the items that I did not too long ago. This started out as a block of walnut, about 2 inches thick, 14 inches square. That thing must have weighed about 15 pounds when I started it. Now it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, less than a pound. And this is what they call two-side CNC. So you start first off on the block itself, you have the machine drill some guide holes. Then you go through rough cutting, final cutting. Once you're done with that, then you're going to turn it over and you're going to put guide holes in what you call the spoil board. The bottom, you can see on that one, I've got 3 spoil boards on there. You don't want to machine into that aluminum base. So you've got a spoil board. So you drill into that spoil board, flip it over, align it with those guide holes, do the back side. Christmas item, just decorative sled. Runners are all made on the CNC. The top and the engraving is made on the CNC. This is done. This is the way it comes off the machine. I don't touch that. Whether there's any sanding afterwards. This is the way it comes off the machine. Now, with something like this, I'll do some sanding on that because you are going to get some machine marks, no matter how careful you are.
What step did you use on the ball?
You mean the step over? I would guess it was 5 to 8%. Now that's on the final. You know, when I'm roughing it with a 1/4-inch end mill, you know, I'm looking at 50% because I just want to get rid of material. I'm not trying to finish it. I just want to get rid of material. But when you're doing the 1/8-inch ball nose, you've got to have a very small step over, or you're gonna get grooves. Little snowman. Again, 2-sided carving. See back. This is a free plan that Vectric puts out. Every Christmas, they put out a number of plans like that. Another freebie from Vectric. Christmas tree candy dish. When you're spending 15 hours cutting, no, I'm off doing something else. I'm making something else, or I'm off doing whatever. On my big machine, I went to that spindle, or water-cooled spindle. I went to a 3-horse spindle on it because I had to run a 220 line for it, but it's an ER20 collet on it. So I can run anywhere from maybe a 1/16 of an inch shank router bit up to a 1/2 inch shank router bit. Your smaller spindles, you can only do a 1/4 inch spindle or 1/4 inch shank router bit. So, pardon?
1/4 and 1/8.
Okay, right, a 1/4 and 1/8, but you can't go larger than a 1/4 inch. Where that's the advantage of the larger spindle is when you're cutting out this much wood, making this much sawdust, much nicer to use a 1/2 inch router bit instead of an 1/8 or a 1/4 inch because it goes that much faster. Yeah, Gary?
What about an 8mm?
They make
What-
collets,
What,
or collet reducers for
VGMs,
this.
I think.
yeah, that collet, those collets come with, I don't know, it's 8 or 10 collet inserts, typically in millimeters. So you have to pick the right millimeter for your 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch.
On the 1/8 inch ball nose, what RPM are you running?
On this spindle, I can run anywhere from 16,000 to 24,000, and I'm typically running in the 20,000 RPM.
Fire hazard with the cutting process that you need to be aware of?
Not that I've, well, I should say, yeah, there can be a potential if you're cutting too deep, so you're hitting the collet on your wood, and I've done that before. There is a lot of dust here, but with the spindle, you don't have any sparking going on between a brush and the armature. You know, it is enclosed. It is, and
it runs cool.
yes, it's water cooled. Even after 15 hours, you can put your hand on that spindle, and yes, it's warm, but there's no reason that you're going to burn your hand on it. And you know, surprisingly, I got this spindle, I would guess it's 3 or 4 years ago, and I've got basically a hopper that I filled with water, and I have never had to replace that water, and that water is still just as clean today as when I filled it the first time.
You don't add chlorine or anything?
I do not add anything to it. No, it is strictly tap water. Okay. And yeah, some people will use RV antifreeze. Some people will do it because their unit's out in their garage and it freezes in the wintertime. But no, I have not done anything with mine other than tap water.
Curious if, as you're doing your projects just over, have you ever come back and found that things didn't turn out?
Well, they always, yeah, I still I make mistakes on this. There's no question about it. But there was one time where I had a bit that came loose, and yeah, it messed things up. So yeah, there are mistakes that are made, and you just learn from it and continue on.
Trying to do one of the carvings in my clock, I wanted the thing to be 1/4 of an inch deep, but somehow I messed up inserting it so that it went like 1/8 of an inch down and then started the carving. So the whole thing was much deeper than I thought it was going to be. So it's usually programming error at the design phase than the machine doing its job.
In a lot of cases like this, you're using an aluminum clamp to hold it down on the spoil board. You can also screw it down, and I was going to bring it and I forgot. I've made a few mistakes in the past, and thankfully they were aluminum clamps.
So I'm going to run real quick through mine. Unlike both of them, I do sell my work. I sell my work in 4 art galleries, one in Dahlonega, one in Ellijay, one in Saltanacucci, and one in Aiken, South Carolina. So I make a lot of stuff, a lot of crap, as Gary would say. I do charcuterie boards or serving trays, something like this. And this is done on the laser. And then I typically will do information I can give about how to take care of it and the type of wood and so forth. Now, I think of both of the solutions as a CNC. To me, the difference between the two solutions is what's mounted on the gantry of the CNC machine, whether it's a spindle or whether it's a laser beam mounted on the gantry that moves back and forth, up and down, 3 axes. So, oh, okay. So I've just brought a whole bunch of different items here. Here's a plaque with a carving, and I think this is a carving that's included with some of the Vectric stuff. Here's a commercial thing that I do. I have a number of commercial customers that give me repeat business. This is chair arms that I make. There is a high-end dock maker that makes docks behind your house for your boat and fishing and stuff like that. Real high-end extruded aluminum stuff with some kind of polyurethane or something, barrels under it, hold it. And I make 2 types. They make the whole thing, and then they sell chairs to go on the decks that they build. And they do all of the chairs out of aluminum and hardwood. And they can't figure out how to do the arms in an economical way. So they supply me the wood, and I make 2 different arms for them. One, this is designed to hold a fishing rod, and the other one has a bigger hole, and it's designed to hold beverage, I guess. Yeah, an adult beverage, whatever. And they order these from me in reasonably large quantities. I just got an order this week for another 80 of these. I do a number of cookie carvings here. This is done exclusively on the laser CNC, and it takes a good bit of practice. And for those of you that have sometimes worked with cookies or have had things like this that always split and check and crack and move, the key to doing it successfully is removing the pith and filling the pith with some sort of wood, like a dowel or something like that. I buy these off of Amazon. I think I pay like $8 or $9 a piece for them. They're already pre-drilled with the pith out of it and plugged. $8 or $9. I sell these for $85, and they sell pretty good. I do a bunch of different versions of them. If you remember the Guild, right? If you'll look me up and email me, I will respond to you and give you the exact name and the product on Amazon, etc. I'll maybe send you an invoice of stuff I've done. Here's a project I'm working on for Dahlonega, and I'm experimenting, and this is on rainbow poplar. I'm experimenting with the shape of the state of Alabama, state of Georgia, with Dahlonega and a star for Dahlonega. And as you probably know, Dahlonega is the first gold rush in the United States 20 years before Sutter's Mill in San Francisco. So I typically will take a little piece of driveway gravel, paint it gold with spray paint, and then epoxy that in there to add a little interesting feature to it. Here's another project I do for a customer of mine down in Macon that has, they don't make, but they import tea leaves and make tea bags, you know, with the environmentally friendly materials to make the tea bags and stuff. So they buy my boxes and they display their tea bags in my boxes. And I put the little dividers in here and so forth and carve their logo or burn their logo with CNC. And they sell my boxes to high-end resorts like the Breakers and Waldorf in New York and on and on and on. The Cloisters and St. Simon's and so forth. And they buy my boxes and put their tea bags in them, and they have a sign that they put here to advertise their tea bags. So when you're at a high-end conference at a big resort, you go out and they got Cokes and coffee and iced tea and blah, blah, blah. So you can get their tea bags and make a cup of tea, and they're hoping you're going to buy one. And they typically sell my boxes for about, I think they sell them for about $30 less than they pay me for them. And they keep telling me to reduce my price, and I keep saying no. And, and I keep saying, just take some of my boxes and send them to Taiwan or China or whatever, and see if you can get the same quality at a reduced price. And you're welcome to. On my spindle CNC, I have the diamond bit that you were talking about earlier, and I do glass and mirrors and stones. I do slate stones, and the slate stones are really popular for Fido, our best friend forever, 1993 or whatever. And vets and other places like that sell them, and they're real popular.
What bit do you use for that, and what angle?
Oh, I think it's a 60 degree. I'm sorry. I think it's and you get for the diamond bit, you've got to have a diamond bit that's spring loaded, or it'll crack and break glass or mirrors. And actually, mirrors like glass for a lot of people. So here is, you want to pass that around? And I got tape on there to protect your fingers from getting cut and so forth. That's glass. And that is done with the laser, not with the diamond bit on the spindle CNC. Okay. In the bit itself, it's got like a ballpoint pen. It's got a diamond insert or round thingamabob or whatever, and it's got a spring where it can actually move up and down very slightly. And the reason for that is to keep from putting too much pressure on thin glass, and it will fracture the glass if you do that. Here's something I do. I've started doing these. Somebody, Thanksgiving week, this last year, started pushing me about doing Christmas ornaments. You got to do them, you got to do them. So I said, okay, crap, I'll do some. And I sold over 300 of these between Thanksgiving and Christmas. John, catch. So pass that around if you want to. I brought those to give away. Just take, if you see one you like. I make 4 different kinds of those, 4 different themes. I make a Christian series of ornaments, Christmas ornaments, and those are mangers and scripture verses and so forth. I do what I call a secular version of Christmas stuff, where it's Christmas ornaments with snowflakes and reindeer and blah, blah, blah. I do an athletic one with all sorts of different images of sports like Georgia Bulldogs and so forth like that. And I use clip art to do that. Okay, my laser is 14 by 24. The bed is 14 by 24. I'm glad you asked, because I was about to explain that. So I take a piece, it's 14 by 20, and I take a piece of 1/4 inch plywood, and I trim it down 1/4 inch, so it's got a little play within that, and I can get 4 rows of 6 ornaments. So I can do 24 ornaments at a time and close the door, pull the trigger, and it cuts them out like this. It not only engraves the image or burns the image, but it also cuts it out of the plywood. And I can do 24 of them at a time and walk away. And I'll probably do it earlier this year, and I'll probably, in 4 different places. I only sold them 1 place this year. I'll probably do 1,000 of them, sell 1,000 of them this year. So another thing I do have a rotary device. And this is the only thing I've done on my rotary device so far. And this was done on the laser. And these are tumblers that I buy from Amazon again. And I forget what I pay for them, but I don't do slight margins on stuff. And I do lots of different images, Appalachian Trail, you know, Bigfoot, stuff like that. Obviously, none of the older fellows on this front row have noticed the nuance in that the image is an image of Prince and it's purple for Purple Rain. Dwayne finally caught it after it was explained. Kevin, raise your hand next time before you start talking. I do ornaments like out of acrylic. I've started doing ornaments that I sell at Trail Fest for clipping on backpacks or whatever they want to do with them. And these, you know, these are reasonably popular stuff. One of my granddaughters is a swimmer in college, and I did a box for her and put an image like this on it. Another one of my nephews is a marching band drummer, and I did an image for them. And this says, if they pass out, just march around them. A friend of mine was he was the official artist for Formula One racing in Europe for several years, and he drove for a few years. So he gave me a photograph of him driving his car, and I imported the photograph and did a three-dimensional burn with the laser on that right there. And that is, I think that's hard maple there. You know, I do lots of stuff like this, and this, and this, and this were test pieces that I did for a cremation box. I did 5 sides of the cremation box. The one was a Celtic cross, one was the logo of their deceased son's high school or middle school or whatever. One was the college he went to, and the other one I think was the fraternity. And then on the top of the box, I put the deceased son's name, date of birth, and date of death on there. You know, interesting things like this that I do a lot of. Here's an example of how fine you can do engraving with the CNC. And that's very shallow and very, very precise. And of course, you can make it deeper and darker and stuff like that. And by the way, I've learned that when I'm doing a laser burn and I'm dissatisfied with the darkness, the contrast of the burn, I will do one pass just on the raw wood, and then I'll come back with borax and water mixed together and splash it over and rub it in a little bit, do a second burn, and it'll turn it dark, 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 dark. These are clamp blocks that I do, and these are clamp blocks for, does anybody guess what these are for? These go on the C-130 Hercules, for real. You would have guessed that, John. You're the smartest guy I know. Not to be confused with me, the biggest smart aleck I know. So these are all different size holes for different cables or wires or whatever. Some are 2 holes, some are 1/4 inch, some are inch, some are 3, 4, 5, 6 holes in them. So they're split apart, and then they put the wire, they lay the wires in them, and then I put holes on this side, and this is how they mount through these holes, is how they mount it to whatever surface they put it on in the C-130. So when they told me, John, the guy that has been making them for us, that was so rude, he passed away last month. And they said he hasn't increased his price in over 20 years. And they said, wink, wink, it's a government deal, so you can make up whatever price you want for them. I said, yes, I'd like to bid on this job. So this is a pretty lucrative little deal here. You know, they order in units of 400 or 500, and just for these little wooden things here. I would say my average price for this about $25.
Do you need somebody to help you, John?
Well, I mean, my wife says this is a hobby gone really, really bad. So as Gary so eloquently put it, that's a kind of a view of the crap that I make. And yes, I do sell, and it feeds my tool habit and lets me pay occasionally for some of those green colored tools. And Tom Melcher, I was going to show, this is my laser machine. And Michael, where's the other one? All right, that's a serving tray for a wine tasting room in Dahlonega. And then that's my CNC, and my CNC is a 5 horsepower air cooled, and it is 96 inches by 48 inches, and I can do probably 104 by probably 52 or something like that. And ShopBot is the brand. And Tom Melcher he and I went over to Montgomery and picked this up from my brother's door manufacturing company and had it loaded. We had to put wheels and stuff on it and had it loaded on a flatbed wrecker, with the thing that would go, the bed that would go down like this. Yeah, I know it. I know it. And I use my typical excuse, my knees hurt. I can't squat down, Tom. And then they brought it back. The wrecker people brought it back on that flatbed wrecker, and then did this at my workshop and unloaded it. It worked almost like we knew what we were doing, didn't it, Tom? So that's my stuff. I would add one thing when somebody was talking about the drag knife. Drag knife is a really good tool as long as you don't switch the spindle on. No, it swivels within the housing. So when you drag it, like you were saying, Mark, when you drag it around like this, you don't want it turning because it's basically a razor blade captured in a thing there. Yes, sir.
In Amazon, if you search for wood slices, wood circles, or wood rounds, it'll give you those results.
Yep. I would be very, very careful though, that you find the ones that the pith has been drilled out of it and replaced with a dowel. And those, I've never had one split on me, but everything I've ever done with the pith remaining in the center of the cookie, every one of those has always split and cracked and get thrown away eventually. Yes, sir.
So that comes pre-done with the dowel already in it.
The ones I buy do, Bob. Yes, and the ones I buy come in boxes of 6 or 8 or something like that. I think they are fur. Now, I think you're an Auburn graduate. So it's not the fur like it's a fur piece from my house to yours. You had a question, sir.
Are you guys familiar with each other's equipment, and is it comparable? And are there quantities between early generation machine and one that you have today, and kind of where's the technology on today's machines versus?
I'm not a label bigot, but
is the technology involved a lot, and are you really limited to the old machine that given a lot of technological?
You guys help me out. I'll give my opinion first. I don't think the technology in the machines has improved very much. The technology in the software has improved dramatically, but this is Ipe, which is about as hard as anything you can get that grows in the form of a tree. And I don't know that you could cut a lot of these with a router-based CNC that doesn't have much power?
Well, I think it's gonna depend on how much, the size of your router bit and how much of a path how much depth you're gonna
Yep.
make. You know, something like that, you may end up only doing a 32nd of an inch, whereas on something else, you may be doing an 1/8 of an inch per pass.
Yep. But my spindle on my CNC is 5 horsepower, and I go from, I don't know, 300 or 400 RPM up to 35,000 RPM, and it's got a 1/2 inch, 1/4, 1/8 collets and so forth. So with it, it's a beast, and I take a 5-foot, my customer supplies me with the wood. I take a 5-foot piece of that and make 3 of these. And I'm always interested in how quick I can do it, how economically I can do it, how I can improve my margin and so forth like that.
What brand of bits do you use for these? Do you use any of the ones with the special coating?
I tend to stay away from router bits, and I tend to go for CNC bits. And I tend not to buy the $9 CNC bits or the $21 kit with 7 of them in it. I tend to go for quality that won't break and the shanks won't break. And so I typically go white side or Amana or something above that, a good quality bit.
What's
Yes,
the wattage on your lasers?
mine is 65. Mark's, I think, is 100 and something. 130. And I'd love to one day explore going up when my bulb burns out. But I'm told, and Mark reemphasized this, that the Aztec calendar that I passed around is so finely done. Mark said that you can't dial a big wattage beam down to get fine cutting like that. Am I saying that correct, Mark?
Challenge. What I could do before with the 60 watt, it's different now, and now you're down to like trying to do something, and 10% gets it, 9% you get nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like.
And 10% when your laser is out of the box is different than 10% of the beam strength when you've used it 400 hours.
Okay, let's give John Jones a hand and